Create Your Vibrant Life podcast. So, in today's episode, we're going to cover what causes disconnect in intimate relationship. And also, this concludes our relationship mini-series. So, stay tuned for amazing information coming your way. What's up, visionaries? Welcome to episode number 16 of What Causes Disconnect in Your Romantic Relationship. And by the way, I've just decided to call you all visionaries because I started to notice a common theme of how the quality of people who are following me on social media and who follow my content, and they had certain things in common with them. One, they were visionaries. That's the term I came up with because there was a need or desire to want more from life, to be a leader. Like most of them felt like they were thought leaders. They have a deep, deep, deep desire to make an impact, not only in their own life, but the world around them. And they had this desire to want to create life in their own terms. So I just decided to call them visionaries. So that's what I'm going to call you all going forward. So by the way, did you have a chance to listen to all the relationship training series that was here that before it got taken down? And our relationship training has completed last week. And we also started the group program this Monday, which has been amazing. And if you have found value in any of the episodes that you've been listening to, and by the way, I know you have, you know why? Because we've had over 750 downloads of this podcast and we've barely been on for 2 months. To me, it's like a huge thing, because I want to provide value. And when I'm hearing that people are finding value, that's what keeps me going. So my request, it's a heartfelt request. If you can, please leave a review on iTunes. And only because it's not for me, it's for the same reasons you would look up reviews on Yelp or Amazon before you get something. It's just for that. It just allows me to reach more and more people. And I want to impact the world. And if you are a visionary, which I think you are, this is also a big value of yours to impact the world. So, and because of the law of reciprocity, I am giving away Starbucks gift card to anyone who leaves a review. So as soon as you leave a review, just take a screenshot of that and send it to support@padmaali.com and you will receive a gift card. All right, back to this episode. So the reason I decided to do an episode on this, which is to what causes disconnect in romantic relationship, is because I noticed something. I noticed something in the free training that I did. I noticed something that interfered in the ability to connect open-heartedly with their partners, for people to connect with their partners. And what I noticed was there was a deep desire to connect, but either the partner was not available or too much had happened between the couple that caused the disconnect. And what was sad was the feelings that were left behind. And you may or may not relate to this, but it's the feeling of like despair, loneliness, or disconnect. And I decided, you know what, let me talk about this because I know this will help. Because even if you are in an amazing relationship, I bet there have been times where you felt really lonely. You felt like your partner didn't get you. And so I thought this episode would be really good for anyone who's in a relationship. Now, why does this disconnect happen? So here's the thing that I noticed again. And you may or may not have already noticed that in your own relationship, in all these scenarios that I described before, right now, there's one thing in common. And that is fear of getting hurt. Have you considered that that's the real reason why disconnects happen, why arguments happen, why frustration happens, right? It's the fear. There's the underlying reason. First of all, the reason is you want to be heard and understood. But under that, when a disconnect happens, it's like I'm pulling away, right? Disconnect means pulling away. And pulling away happens because of the fear of getting hurt. I'm going to take this apart in 2 ways. So the first part is whenever there is whenever there's a disconnect, it's usually coming from fear of getting hurt, but with that fear of getting hurt is there's something that goes hand in hand with that. And that is needs not being met. I'm going to take it apart for all of you, so just stay with me. See, the reason we feel all the negative feelings in a relationship is because our needs are not met. Just think about it, right? Like anytime you've had an argument with your partner, right? There's always a need underneath that hasn't been met. And you may already know this, but I'm going to share something with you that I know you may have not considered. And that is, what are your beliefs about needs? About your own particular needs being met? Asking for your needs. What are your beliefs about needs? So let me explain this, okay? So in my 20 plus years of helping people and couples, and guys, I've helped highly successful people, CEOs, entrepreneurs, people in very high level positions in their jobs. But when it came down to relationships and conflict, it came down to one thing: the beliefs that they had about what was happening inside them, the beliefs that they carried, and more specifically in their relationship, their beliefs about their needs being met. So what exactly is a belief? You may be like, what is a belief? Like, what does that really mean, right? So a belief is a story you've told yourself. So if you hold a belief that your needs will not be met no matter how you ask for it, then it's going to drive all the conversation. It's going to be the thing that pushes the conversation because you're going to be seeing everything from that lens. See, eventually you will start to see that this connects with your past experiences from your childhood, what you were told about yourself, and even the folks in relationships who tend to be explosive or angry, what they have learned is that to get their needs met, they have to demand it, to be angry, to complain. Otherwise, their needs will not be met. Have you considered that? Like underneath all of that is like a need not being met. Oh, and let's not forget the people who remain silent in arguments. So that's my husband. Don't tell him that. He doesn't listen to my podcast. I'm just joking. So the silent people, that's, like many in a couple that you'll usually find someone who's very, very who's more expressive. And then there's one person who generally tends to be the silent one, the one who shuts down and the one who feels invisible, right? And that person, they also have a belief that for them, the belief is the other way around. They have learned that expressing themselves doesn't get their needs met. That's what their belief is. Their belief is it won't work. No matter how I ask for it, what I say, my partner's not going to hear. So might as well shut up and be quiet. So that's what they have learned. That's a belief that they carry. And you see, here's the thing. It doesn't stop there. When you have a belief about something, including needs, it leaves an energetic imprint. You hear me talk about energetic imprints a lot and beliefs a lot because those are some of the main ways I work with people. So let me explain. Okay, here's how it plays out. Say you have a belief that your needs are not important. And by now, you may or may not have already realized that you're not walking around saying, hey, my needs are not important. Like, you don't do that, right? It's not like something you're walking around and talking about it. It's something that it's an unconscious or a conscious story that you're carrying, that you're holding inside, that just plays out. You may not even realize that that's happening in an argument or in a connection with your partner, but it's something that's just there. Let me give you an example. I think that'll be easier if I use an example and be easier for you to follow along. So, I had a client who had a belief that unless he repeatedly asked for his needs, it will never be met. And that used to be one of my beliefs, like I have to keep asking for it. And therefore, my husband just shuts down, right? Do you see the connection? So here's the thing. So he felt like he had to repeatedly ask for his needs. So when his partner says no to something that he has asked for, let's say he wants to buy something, I'm just going to make this up, like a gadget or a TV or something like that. And his partner doesn't want that. Because of that belief that I have to keep asking, most likely he's going to keep asking and asking and asking and asking to find different ways of asking till his partner either gives in or there's like this major conflict between them. But here's the thing, right? Even if the partner gives in, the journey is going to be so ridden with frustration and anger from both parties because the recipient, the partner, is going to feel totally manipulated or pushed or bulldozed or one of those things. And my client used to often feel so frustrated. It's like, oh my God, like, why can't my partner just hear me? So you can see, right, how powerful these beliefs are when it comes to relationships, can't you? And by now, you may or may not have realized that each belief has an energetic imprint or a signature connected with that. I'm going to explain it a little bit further more so you can really get this. You see, every thought, every emotion has a vibration connected with it, and so do beliefs, because beliefs are nothing but thoughts and stories. Right. So this is why when I work with my clients, we do deep diving into clearing beliefs and energetic imprints to take out the roots so that it doesn't have that same heaviness or weight that it carries. Right. And so then you can start to shift on the outside when the roots are cleared. So here's the beauty again, right? We don't have to go after every single belief, like, because you'll have to spend lifetimes after lifetimes doing that. And that's not going to be very helpful, would it be? So you don't have to go after every belief. Usually it boils down to a core few. And as you start to work with them and clear them out, you will start to see the shifts right away. So here's my question to you. I'm going to bring it all back to you. So okay, let me just go back, just bear with me. So with my client, I forgot to mention that once we worked through all of that, once we figured out where this need was coming from, which is often connected with something that happened in his childhood where he didn't feel like he was heard at all. He felt like he had to scream louder and louder and louder to get his needs. Once we were able to work with that, he was able to approach his partner from a different place. And the no's didn't feel like he had to continue to push for it. And there was a way that they were able to work this out. So that's the power and beauty of working with beliefs and clearing the energetic imprint. So it doesn't have to do that. So this is something you may already have noticed in your own life. If it's playing out with your partner, it probably plays out in other areas of your life. Maybe not as blatantly as it does with your intimate relationship, but it plays out. It plays out everywhere. At work, with your colleagues, with your employees, if you have any, it will play out. So this is why it's important to do the work. So bringing it back to you. So my question to you, what do you believe about your needs? What are your beliefs about your needs? Do you have a fundamental belief that your needs will be met? That you will have a relationship where you're loved and desired? And that you can meet your own needs as well as your partner will meet your needs? Or do you hold an unconscious belief that this is not possible? And if you hold that belief, how does it play out? See, in my experience in working with people, it plays out as anger, frustration, disappointment, disgust towards your partner and towards yourself when these needs are not being met. When you hold the belief that your needs are not important or they won't be met. Like I said before, it's not like you're going to be walking around saying, hey, my needs, I have a belief that my needs will not be met. It just plays out. And the more awareness you can bring into it, the more you can start to shift it, the more you can start to work with it. So if you're experiencing any of the above where you feel like, oh, my needs are not important, or my needs will not be met, or I have to scream louder, or I have to shut down, any of the above, I'm going to invite you to pay very close attention to the second part that I'm going to be talking about right now. You remember I said 2 parts to this? The first part is about the beliefs, and the second part is about, we're going to cover that right now. And this piece is actually vital. And I'm going to connect it for you. Once I say it, you'll be like, of course, it makes complete sense. And that is related to self-worth. And I'm not going to go too much into this in this episode as it warrants a whole episode of its own. But you may already intuitively know that self-worth, or how you feel about yourself, plays a huge role in how connected or disconnected you feel towards your partner. And this is something I deep dive in my group program and with my one-on-one work with my clients, like how all of these things are connected. Again, like I said, you're not going to be walking around saying, I do not have self-worth, I don't value myself. You're not going to be doing that. It plays out, it shows up. It just is how you operate in the world. And that's how it shows up. When you start to feel like, I can never do anything right, or will this ever change, or any of those victim places, that self-worth is at play. You're not valuing yourself. Or if you're not able to set clear boundaries with your partner, like that all comes down to self-worth. And sooner or later, you will begin to see that everything boils down to how much you value yourself or not. And to me, it feels like one of the core things that a lot of people struggle with. If you just paid attention one day, give me one day, just pay attention to your thoughts from when the moment you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed, look at what you're talking to yourself. That will tell you how much, whether you're valuing yourself or not valuing yourself. So, in a relationship, the way self-worth plays out is anger, guilt, shame, confusion, and feeling disconnected. All of those things that it plays out like that. And watch the self-talk. It'll reveal a ton about what you're going through or what's happening under the surface. So let's connect it back to relationship and self-worth, and what self-worth has to do with feeling disconnected with your partner. Like, why is that a second aspect, or why I brought this up? So, have you considered that how you see yourself plays a role in how your partner sees you, consciously or unconsciously? Let me explain this. So, have you been around somebody where they're just like, poor me, poor me, poor me. They're like, oh, life sucks. I can't believe, the ER is the best example I can give you. In the beginning, you might feel a little bad for them. You're like, oh, I'm so sad that they're going through this, or whatever. And then at some point, you're going to be like, wow, like it's so depressing being around this person. Like, I can't even be around them. Like, it just makes me feel so terrible and bad and so sorry for them, right? It's the ER is the best, easiest way I can capture that image for you. So think about that. That's and usually that comes down to self-worth again. Like, I can tie it all back to self-worth and how you value yourself or not. And do you want to be around somebody like that? It's the same thing. So if you're feeling disconnected and self-worth is one of the things you're struggling with, just imagine, the disconnect is going to be there for two reasons. First reason is, when you are not valuing yourself, you're disconnected from your own self. Consider that. You're disconnected from your own self. When you're disconnected from your own self, how on earth can you connect with anybody? I'm not talking about just moments of that. There are times, like, including me, I'm on the same path as you all. I have to keep doing this work too. There are times when I'm like, the negative self-talk chatter starts. At that point, I don't want to be around anybody. I can't even connect with my own kids at that time, right? It's that same thing. Have you considered that? And the second piece is, when you are not valuing yourself, people around you are not going to value you. How you show up in the world is going to make people treat you a particular way, or it's going to make them treat you in that way. You're training them to treat you in that way because you don't value your own self. You might not be able to set boundaries. You might not be able to say, no, this is not for me. I don't want to do this. It's going to be all driven by wanting to be liked and loved. And that is a straight road to disaster. And being direct with you guys, like, I'm not going to do any service to any of you if I'm not direct. And then the other part to this, the connection between self-worth and how it impacts relationships. So have you considered that the role, how you see yourself, right? How you see yourself plays a role in even with who you're attracted to. Let me explain. Okay, so take a tuning fork. Take two tuning forks. A tuning fork is vibrating at a particular frequency. You bring another tuning fork close to it, it starts vibrating at that same frequency. So if you are not valuing yourself, you're probably, if you're not in a relationship and you want to be in one, you're going to attract someone who is also going to be in the same frequency as you are, meaning they may not have enough self-worth themselves either, and or they're going to treat you in a particular way because that's what's happening. Like if you don't value yourself, they're going to treat you in that way. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm just going to call this person Jane. Let's say Jane unconsciously believes that she's not good enough. And again, you don't walk around saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. You don't do that. It just plays out. And it plays out as anger, sadness, depressed, anxiety. And you know that anytime you're feeling any of that, it has to do with the beliefs you're carrying about your own self and about the world. When she is in that state of I'm not good enough, she's going to attract a partner that either reinforces that belief unconsciously. So much happens under the radar, guys, in a relationship. It's insane. And she's going to attract someone who's reinforcing that unconsciously, even if they don't mean to. They reinforce that the way they talk to them or the way they are around that person is around Jane is going to make her feel like she's not good enough, even if her partner has no intention of doing that, because she has a lens through which she looks at her partner and whatever her partner does, which is, I'm not good enough. It will also play a role in how she allows herself to be treated and how she treats her partner. They all play a role, which is why, if you read any kind of research on women who've been abused, I'm just going to use that as an example. Anybody who's in an abusive relationship, they might leave that relationship and then 6 months later go back to another relationship, which is similarly abusive. It's because, again, the beliefs that they're carrying about themselves. And this is what they know. And I can go into many different tangents here, but I want you to see that you often find partners who reinforce the same beliefs in you. Now, I'm going to share something that you may already know, but once you get this, once you really, really get this, your relationship will start to shift and you won't get caught up in the exchanges that's happening between you and your partner during an argument. Ready? And this is again coming back to tying it all back together with self-worth, okay? So, ready for it? Your partner is a reflection of you. Your partner is a mirror. He or she is reflecting you. They're literally holding up a mirror showing you what's happening. Now, this doesn't mean you need to be okay with everything they say or do, but it's an opportunity to see what's happening on the inside. If you're feeling triggered, it's actually amazing because you can see what on earth is getting triggered in me. What is my partner reflecting back to me that I need to see that I'm not yet seeing? You might understand this if you are a meditator, which a lot of people who follow me are very spiritually evolved. So they meditate and they go inwards and they do these things. They do mindfulness practices. The bottom line is as a meditator, you might see this. Like you can meditate all day. You can be in your cave and om all day and you be so much at peace. And then the moment your partner walks in, you're like all triggered, agitated, and you're like just getting all out of sorts. Why is that? And that's why the real work happens in the world and not inside your cave of meditation, right? And if you're feeling agitated, if anytime there's a trigger, anytime your partner triggers you, it's an opportunity to go inwards and see what is happening. Why am I getting triggered? What are my beliefs? What are the story I'm telling myself right now? How do I feel about myself? What is my partner reflecting back to me? This is very high level thinking. So it may or may not land for you immediately, but as you listen to this, as you re-listen to this, it will start to make a lot of sense. So I'm inviting you to re-listen to this And if you haven't listened to any of the relationship topics I've done until now, please go ahead and listen to them because they all will add up for you if you're struggling in your relationship. Yeah? All right. So the last part I want to share is that by now, you may or may not have realized that you can't change anybody other than your own self. It's a tough cookie to swallow when you're struggling in your relationship and you're like, if only my partner would change, if only they would do this, if only they would do that. But they're not going to do anything. It's up to you to make those changes. And I'm going to share something with you that's going to really help you understand this more. You know, by now you can see that you may have already realized that when you start working on yourself, things will start to shift. And you'll start to have more internal clarity, and that will in turn bring external clarity. But it starts with you. You know, in my relationship training that I did, the free training series that I did, I focused primarily on what each person could bring into their relationship. And this was the main reason, because their partners were not in the training. Your partners are not listening, or may listen, but if your partners are not actually actively listening to it, you are the one listening. That's why you're the visionary. And even though it might suck to feel like, why do I have to do this work, which came up a lot in the training. A lot of people mentioned, like, why do I have to do this work? And I've done so much work. And why is this not shifting and moving and making a difference? It's mainly because your partners are not in this. And here's one piece that you will start to notice in your own life. It takes one person to get off the argument train. It takes one person to hold peace and love. It takes one person to let go of the argument to be right. And that when one person does it, it's going to create a shift in the entire relationship. You know, when I work with couples, and I used to do family therapy as well at some point in my past, I used to use this analogy a lot. Have you seen a cribmobile? You know, like the ones that you hang over a crib, you know, for the baby to watch. It kind of rotates slowly, like there's little pieces, little figurines that kind of rotate, you know? And if one of those figurines stops working, like one of those threads stop working, the whole thing stops working properly, creates some chaos. It doesn't work as well. And that's exactly what it is. It's similar to your relationship. If you just one person either gets into an argument or gets off an argument, you can do it both ways, right? You can really start to make a shift. One person creates a change. It will have a ripple effect on the relationship. It might take some time. It's always more effective if both of you do it together. But if just one person does it, it will start to shift. Can you see how powerful this is? You can, right? This is so damn powerful. I'm going to cover self-worth in depth in another episode, probably next one, I'm not sure. But for now, I'm going to end this episode with an amazing, amazing saying by one of my guides and mentors, Don Javier. He's a shaman. And I want to leave this amazing quote with you all, because this is going to help see this entire relationship series that I've covered so far. It's going to help you see the impact of, it's going to just bring it all together for you. So here's the quote. To change the world, I must change myself. To change myself, I must stop the world. When I stop my world, I change myself. When I change myself, I change my world. I'm going to repeat it one more time, and then I'm going to invite you to listen to it as much. Re-listen to that quote again and again and again, because there is so much wisdom in that quote. When I heard it from my guide, it literally just stopped me in my tracks. Because, you know, and you can apply this to your big world, which is the world that we live in. You can apply this to your little world with your family, with your relationship, with your partner. But you can apply this to anything. So here's the quote again. To change the world, I must change myself. To change myself, I must stop the world. When I stop my world, I change myself. When I change myself, I change my world. It's incredible, isn't it? And I'm going to leave you with that. And next week, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to be talking about, but it's going to be more on life because that's what this podcast is about, isn't it? Living your best life in your terms. And that's why I created this podcast, which is Create Your Vibrant Life. Create the life in your terms, and you have the ability to do that. Thank you for being an amazing listener. Thank you for allowing me to serve you. Thank you for allowing me to bring my 40 something years of experience into this podcast so that I can serve you at my highest level. And I hold immense gratitude for each of you who've been following this. And I will connect with you in the next episode. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this podcast. Make sure to tag me on Instagram at Padma Ali to share your takeaways from this episode. And lastly, share with your friends and family so they can also benefit from listening to this podcast. For more tips, go on to our website, padmaali.com, and connect with me at the next episode. Take care. Bye.